For player profiles, in-depth features, and exclusive interviews, visit sfhandbook.com to learn more about the best young football players in the world. Hello and welcome back to the latest instalment of the Scouted Football Podcast. I've got a little bit of a triple threat today. Myself, Stephen and Llew Davies will be on the podcast, three scouted stalwarts, some might say. And we're going to be discussing the UEFA Youth League, which is sort of an under-19 Champions League. It's currently at the semi-final stage of this year's competition. Last year it was cancelled due to the COVID pandemic, but this year they've got back to a regular schedule. And it's been quite an enthralling season of Youth League football by all accounts. Lots of new names, lots of names that will undoubtedly become first team players in future. Llew and Steve have been ruling the roost over that, and I'm delighted to have them both on the pod. So, guys, welcome back to the normal podcast. I know you're regulars on the Patreon pods, and you've been covering the Youth League quite extensively on Patreon, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've been every match day been going through and doing some pretty detailed write-ups on some of our favourite performers from any given match day that we've seen. Obviously, there's probably, during the group stages, like 16 games or whatever it is on, so we can't obviously get to every single one. But I feel like over the journey, we've seen a little bit of most teams, and got a better idea of the new crop coming through, which it looks to be another very, very good one.
Yeah, I agree with Stevie there. This is the first time that we've actually devoted like proper attention to the Youth League as well, it feels like. So yeah, it's been really fun to really drill down on some of the players, a lot of the teams. We've watched probably God knows how many hours of football over the past, since the start of the season. So yeah, it's been a fun experience, and hopefully something that we can build on going ahead with Scouted Football and into the summer and beyond.
And sign up to the Patreon so that you can read all of the reports, and also we talk about it quite a lot on the podcast we do every week as well. So go check that out and sign up.
Yeah, it's always been a competition which has always been on my radar, or been on our radar, but it's just finding the time and the resource to actually cover it extensively, like you two have. And I have to say, reading through each week on the Patreon has been really interesting. I mean, lots of players that I've never come across before, and just for people who aren't aware of it, or who might be aware but don't know the format, it's sort of a Champions League for the under-19 teams, and it starts out with 64 teams. You've got two pathways. So you've got the Champions League path, which is just an identical group stage structure, the same as the Champions League, same teams. The under-19 sides play each other, corresponding to the senior teams. And you've also got a domestic champions path, which is where you've got 32 teams drawn into two rounds of two-legged home and away ties, the old UEFA Cup style. And they are the equivalent is the winner of the under-18 Premier League would go into the domestic champions path if, say, for example, their senior team didn't qualify for the Champions League normally, because then they'd go into the Champions League path. But 32 becomes 16, and then 16 becomes 8 after the second round, and at which point they're then drawn against the runners-up from the Champions League path groups. So if you're still with me on that, then it's quite complex to think about. But I think, you know what? Go and have a look on Wikipedia. That's how I figured it out. So,
but it's a great structure as well, because it obviously gets the Champions League teams, which most of them are also going to have some pretty elite level academies, your Manchester Cities, your PSGs, your Ajaxes, etc. But it also throws up some very interesting teams that come through the Champions path. So this year we had Empoli come through, and they had a nice run. Eventually played Borussia Dortmund and lost 5-3, but gave it a really good go. There was Deportivo La Coruña, who were in there as well, who senior team aren't doing so fantastically these days, but the youth team made it all the way to the UEFA Youth League. Midtjylland as well, more teams like that. It was some really interesting games, and a lot of those kind of teams did quite well and knocked off some big teams. I think there was Žilina knocked out Inter, I believe, as well. So it always throws up some interesting results from some teams that you don't normally expect to be competing at such a high level in the senior game.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like just another pathway for players as well, in a way. So like you see with Žilina now, they lost out in the round of 16 to Salzburg, who are a much more reputable club. They lost on penalties. So yeah, and you get like these bolter teams. I think Genk have been one of our favourite teams this tournament as well for me and Steve watching.
RZ were pretty good as well, beating Villarreal on penalties and taking Juventus to penalties as well. So yeah, plenty of teams that their senior team wouldn't normally make the Champions League, but obviously it's a strong academy structure and their teams are very competitive at this level.
And I suppose there'll be lots of these players who are in these teams, in these bolter sides, who will then go on to play senior football for those clubs, but also senior football elsewhere. I mean, you look at sort of the I don't know, past winners or historical performances. Barcelona won it in 2014 with the likes of Munir El Haddadi, Tony Sanabria, that's a blast from the past, Adama Traore. And then you've got some really, really strong Benfica teams over the years. Gonçalo Guedes in 2014, João Felix in 2017, Gonçalo Ramos 2020. And obviously, as you would probably expect with Red Bull Salzburg, the structure there, how they effectively use Liefering as their under-19 team, and the players who come in go to Liefering first, and then play for the under-19 side in the UEFA Youth League. The likes of Karim Adeyemi, Luka Sucic, Junior Adamu, all having lots of UEFA Youth League experience. But in terms of past winners and sort of alumni and that sort of thing, Steve, I mean, who has been sort of who's ruled the roost effectively over the past few years since the Youth League's been a thing?
Well, probably the one team that kind of stands out as a very consistent contender at this level is probably Chelsea, and that shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone given the quality of player that they've churned out over the years. I think Real Madrid have always been very strong competitors at this level. Barcelona, as you would expect, and yes, Red Bull Salzburg, I believe, have won the competition. One of only, I think there's been 7 or 8 winners. And then the Portuguese teams, especially Benfica, are always pretty competitive as well. But potential for a new winner this year. We've got some interesting semi-finals coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah, looking very much forward to a new winner because it's all good having the same academies doing really well every year, but it's good to see someone new, especially seeing Juventus in the semi-final makes me happy.
Yeah, we'll get on to sort of the teams who are in the semi-final and just sort of a rundown of this season's competition. But as you say there, it's the Youth League this year is at the semi-final stage. Those ties will be played at the end of April, swiftly followed by the final, I think 3 or 4 days later. On the 25th, but you might have to correct me on that. But yeah, currently 3 teams have made it to the semis. Obviously, Juve, as you mentioned there, Atletico Madrid and Red Bull Salzburg. The 4th team's yet to be decided because due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Dynamo Kiev, their round of 16 tie with Sporting is yet to be played for obvious reasons. And the winner of that would have played will play Benfica in the quarters. And then the winner of that tie against Benfica would play Juve in the semis. So still a little bit up in the air on that. Depending on when you listen to this, that may or may not have been played or decided at the outcome.
So it's due to be played on the 2nd. So.
Yeah. So yeah, that fixture obviously due to be played, but depending on when you're listening, that's the situation behind it. Llew, I mean, in terms of teams that have excited you or surprised you or caught your eye this season, you were talking about the likes of Genk, for example. Are there any? I mean, I know that the current top scorers in the Youth League this season are both Midtjylland players, Mads Hansen and Aral Simshir. Who's I mean, as a team performance, who's caught your eye?
I mentioned Genk. Genk were a good team. I enjoyed watching them. They came through the domestic champions path, obviously, and they were ultimately knocked out by Liverpool a bit and fortunate to do so as well. But they had the likes of Luca Oyen, who's now breaking into the first team. He looks like he is a standout talent from that group, and he's the leader of the Belgium under 19 group at the minute. Another Belgian team that I think that me and Steve both enjoyed watching was Club Brugge as well. So if you're not familiar with the structure they have there, it's fairly similar to Red Bull Salzburg in that they have a B team in the lower leagues of the Belgian football system. So last season they were playing in the second division. This season I think they're playing reserve league football, but nevertheless you could see that a lot of the under 19 team from the youth league had played together for Club NXT as they're branded. And yeah, in terms of like the overall quality of their team as a collective, you could see that they were really well coached, really cohesive. They played as a proper team, so they played with a 4-3-1-2 shape, and they pressed really well. And in terms of standout talent from there, you had Cisse Sandra and Lynn Todor, who are again similar to Luca Oyen at Genk. They're breaking into the first team setup at Club Brugge, and it's just they were probably my favorite team on balance. I'm not sure what Stevie will have to say about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably definitely throw in PSG. So much top line talent in that team. Javi Simmons, Warren Zaire-Emery, who was 15 years old and completely bossing every game he played. Edouard Mishu, Gabi, JD Gassama, a few players there that look like they definitely have, senior quality at a pretty high level. And then also, I'd probably say outside of Juve, because of my bias, Sevilla were a really, really fun team to watch as well. With the man we dubbed the mini Maradona, Carlos Alvarez up front, alongside Antonio Zazzana on the wing, and Juan Lu, who looks like a really, really good midfield prospect as well. So I'd throw in those two, possibly a little bit of Atletico Madrid, coached by none other than Fernando Torres. Other than that, I feel like the English teams are a little bit weaker than normal this season. Dortmund were a good watch as well. Anyway, there's lots of good teams, so I could probably go on for another 15 minutes on all the different clubs, but we can probably move on.
You touched on the English teams there. Club Brugge and PSG were in Manchester City's group, and it was PSG going through as group winners, so automatically going to the last 8. And then Club Brugge, who finished second, who were then drawn into the playoff round with the teams from the domestic champions path. Man City finished third in that. And one of the few games that I did watch of the Youth League this season was the City Club Brugge game, which ended 5-3 to the Belgians. And yeah, Cisse Sandra got 2 in that game. Lint Odor, as you also mentioned, Lou, he also got 1 in that one. And a player that I'm very, very fond of, James Mcatee, from Manchester City, he got a hat-trick in that match. And after about 65 minutes or so, you thought, well, this is Man City, flexing their muscles here. But a late comeback, sort of led by Cisse Sandra, kind of put the citizens to the sword. But on PSG as well, I think we put out a thread on the account the other day, sort of summarising some of the key players from that team who were of real interest. And you've mentioned Warren Zaire-Emery playing in midfield, doing really well. I think the quote that I've got here is advanced, rounded skill set, effective in every phase, started all but one game for a good team at 15 years old, which in under 19 football, shouldn't be sniffed at. But that PSG team, I know that there's El Shaddai Bichiabu. I think I may have pronounced that correctly. Yeah. He plays centre half, and he is unmissable purely because the size of him in sort of youth football is just incredible. And that, Steve, I know he got sent off, I think, in one of the games against Club Brugge, but you've raved about him once or twice.
Yeah, well, he's got a big reputation coming into the competition because he played some senior football, I believe, or been in and around the senior setup. He didn't play every game, so it wasn't possible to really get a good grasp of exactly what he is. he definitely looks like a guy that's I'd say he's probably what 6'6", something like that. He's a massive, massive guy. Um, Definitely plays his size. He looks a tad clumsy. But yeah, again, centre back's always hard in these kind of settings as well. Just because one, they're still young and they obviously peak much later. But two, it's just hard to really evaluate centre backs off watching, 2 or 3 games as opposed to watching a midfielder or an attacker where you can really see them taking control of the game, even if you only watch them for a half or for 90 minutes. So, yeah, he's another one. There's probably, as I said, 6 or 7 players in that squad that rolled through that could probably play top 5 league football in the future. And to think that team got knocked out in the quarterfinals, how good some of the other teams must be as well, is a frightening prospect.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at some of the storylines, I mean, we'll come back to PSG, and maybe Lou, you can tell us a little bit more about the some of the other players in that team. Your Javi Simmons and Edouard Michut. But there was some great crowds at this season's fixtures. I mean, there was 19,300, I think, at Westfalenstadion for the Dortmund Atleti quarterfinal. El Nino, Fernando Torres' kids in that one, as you previously mentioned. Mini Maradona, Carlos Alvarez at Sevilla, who you've also mentioned as well, Steve. I thought that was great. 2003 born. I think he's exactly the same height as Maradona as well. A little bit stocky, but very, very creative and protects the ball really well. And then Paulo Agostinho, I think this is my favourite. So he plays for Sporting on the 19s, and he was for what reason was it that he was playing in a club-branded swimming cap?
Yeah, it was because he cut his head open and had to have stitches. So they slapped the swimming cap on him to protect the stitches, and then it happened again in the Champions League a couple of weeks ago with was it Nicolas Otamendi for Benfica against Ajax? I think he was wearing a club-branded swimming cap as well. So it's definitely a Portuguese physio thing.
I was going to say this. That seems. I mean, it must do the business, because clearly they stayed on the pitch. But
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense, really, because like when you think about people bandaging up the heads and stuff, and like just slap a swimming cap on it, it's easy.
I just love that they've got club branded ones as well. That's probably the best part of it. I know that the Portuguese clubs are like sport clubs in every single sport, basically. So that's probably why they have it. But it's just funny nonetheless to see it.
Yeah, that was something which I wasn't watching that game, but I saw one of you guys tweet it, and I just thought that is so peculiar. It's just something you don't see.
The whole tournament itself is just kind of good vibes, though. Lots of goals, as you said. There were a few games where the crowds really turned out. There was one Club Brugge game where they had the ultras roll up about 5 minutes into the game, and PSG as well. There was a couple of games where their notorious ultras, a group of them, rocked up. There was a bad one where Atletico against Real Madrid, where I think it was some Atleti ultras were singing racist chants at some of the Real Madrid players. But mostly, apart from that, it was generally, very good vibes. And these games are always fun to watch if you've got to spare a couple of hours. Mostly a lot of goals, some interesting defending. But a lot of the time, a lot of good quality as well.
Just to build on that point of fans, like when you have stadiums that are full of 20,000 plus fans, like there was in Borussia Dortmund against Atleti, and then Deportivo La Coruña played against they played the whole UEFA Youth League campaign at home at the Riazor Stadium. But then against Dynamo Kiev, they had, I think it was 21,000, which is the second biggest capacity crowd ever in UEFA Youth League history, after Krasnodar against Real Madrid a few years ago, you might remember. But it enriches the match experience and the player experience so much for the players as well. Like you can see, I think it was in maybe PSG Sevilla, where there was lots of kids on the sideline and they were really getting on top of the Sevilla players, and you could see that the Sevilla players are starting to get frustrated by it. And then the other one that sticks out in my head is in the Dortmund Atleti game. The Atleti goalkeeper, his glove basically exploded, and he had to walk to the sideline, and he was cupping his ears to the fans, to the Dortmund fans, and it's just it's just like it's a key learning experience for them.
Yeah, little quirks like that, you're not going to get that with 20 spectators or playing behind closed doors. So yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point, and that's what I was going to mention. I was going to mention the game at Deportivo, and I'm glad that you glad that you absolutely nailed the pronunciation of Riazo, because that I was waiting for it, because I was like, oh, actually, hold on, maybe I'll get a few pointers on how to pronounce this correctly. But yeah, I mean, we'll go back quickly to that PSG team, because you put a thread out on the account, and there was quite a few other players there, not just Xavier Emery or Bichiabu. There were some other really interesting players, and certainly some that we'll be hearing from a lot over the coming years, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the standout was Javi Simmons. I'd never watched him before coming into this tournament, so I had quite a few expectations. I always considered him to be a deeper lying midfielder. That's what he seemed to be when he was
he
at
was
the peak
though.
of his height. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I thought he'd be. I thought he'd be someone that would be pulling the strings from deep, but he was at the point of the attack. He was like a link forward, and pretty much doing everything for PSG in attack in terms of creativity, linking, play in transition. He was a goal threat with his technique, and yeah, he was a standout. I think Stevie loved watching him as well. We've written a lot about him on the Patreon. The other one, then you mentioned Bichiabu. He's another guy that had a bit of a reputation coming in, and then there was Edouard Mishu. He looks like a nice little creative passer. He's played quite a few times for the first team already, similar to Simons. And then Mcatee was another
probably. I think
Yeah.
Gassama was probably the one that I'd never heard of before, because I'd heard of Mishu, Bichabu, and Simmons, but Gassama's been linked with Dortmund as well now. But yeah, really electrifying, kind of direct wide forward, coming in off the left, and he was very, very deadly. Did a job on Man City as well, but as Lou was saying, there's probably, you could keep rattling off the names. Kari in midfield, as he was just about to say, was really impressive as well. Bojang at right or left back, the captain of the team, was superb as well. So a lot of, as you expect, PSG Academy delivering again. Just the question marks now is whether any of them will get first team minutes apart from Simmons.
The thing is, though, I think they'll get a lot of first team minutes elsewhere. Rather, I think we've seen before with PSG that there's a pretty pronounced talent drain there. So I think we mentioned Kari. He was a standout in midfield next to Zaire Emery. He was 16, only turned 17 in November. So he's out of contract this summer. Simons as well is out of contract, so he's got a big decision now. I think he's going into his age 19 season off the back of a really good UEFA Youth League season. So he's got a big decision now in terms of where next, what he's going to do, whether he's going to try and carry this momentum onto maybe a smaller side and build from there, or go to, as maybe Mina Raiola will probably want him to, go to a big club with a big pay package. And yeah,
it'll be the same kind of dilemma as a player like Yassine Adli had a few years ago, where he actually eventually did opt to re-sign and then was sold with a hefty sell-on clause 6 months later to Bordeaux. So I think there'll be players that see that kind of thing and just go, you know what, I'm just going to go sign somewhere else, get minutes. And like someone like Simmons is kind of ready to just break out and have a really, really good
100%.
Senior season next year. I think there were already links to Rangers a few months ago, but I think he's probably a step above that level. And we've seen him go into the PSG first team already this season and be really impressive. So I think there's a good move for him out there somewhere. And hopefully, he gets it and can start to strut his stuff on the senior stage.
To any Chelsea fans listening as well, Xavi Simmons should not be confused with Xavier Simons, who also plays UEFA Youth League football, is also 2003 born, is also a midfielder, and has an incredibly similar name, but is a different player altogether. I remember being down watching an under-23 Premier League 2 game, an under-23 fixture, and I saw his name on the team sheet, and I thought, how have I missed that? So I was looking around for Javi Simmons' sort of curly blonde sort of locks, and then I discovered that no, this was not in fact the Xavi Simmons that I was looking at. It was a completely different one. So yeah, different player altogether. But Simmons, all the same, very exciting prospect. I think it's fair to say. We've discussed PSG there. Obviously, they've been knocked out. Looking to some of the teams who are still in the competition, Steve, you very kindly put an annotation on our little plan here. Juve being really good after putting a lot of resources into academy setup. I would very much like to hear more about that, and I have a feeling that you're probably going to mention Fabio Mcatee.
Yeah, exactly right. It's been a long time coming. Juventus have been in this competition a few times and have kind of been not good at all. But in recent seasons, with the introduction of their team into the third division in Italy, the under-23 team, the club has gone and put a lot of resources into improving the academy setup, integrating more foreign talent. So this season, we've seen the team beefed up, not just with the great Italian players like Gabriele Mulazzi and Fabio Miretti, who are under-19 internationals, but the club has gone and got Felix Nzwango from Amiens, and I think they spent 3 million on him. Tariq Muharemovic is a Bosnian under-19 international who they signed from Wolfsburger in Austria. A really, and then also Matthias Sule, who's another standout player who's been in and around the first team this season, who they got on a free from Vélez Sarsfield a couple seasons ago. So a lot of resources have been put into improving the academy setup, and the team plays really fun, interesting football led by Miretti in midfield, who just looks like another level. Not just from what we've seen in the UEFA Youth League, but also in under-19 Euro qualifying this last couple of weeks in the international break. In a game against Belgium, he was just looked at a completely different level to just about every other player on the pitch, apart from Luka Oyen, who we talked about earlier. So, a really great generation coming through at Juve. And Miretti also had his first minutes in Serie A the other day. So he is a name to track very closely, because I think he is one of those players ready to, in the same mold as Javi Simmons, ready to have a big breakout very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I haven't watched any of the Juve games, but by your accounts and by what you've been writing on the Patreon, it does sound as though that's been the scenario, that the fruits of their labour have definitely paid dividends. Llew, in terms of some of the players that are maybe still in the competition, who people could maybe look out for if they're going to go and tune into one of the semi-finals at the end of April or the final, who would you have your eyes on?
I think quite a few of the Juve boys, as Stevie mentioned. I think Muharemovic looks like a really good centre back. Sula and Miretti, obviously, as well. They're the standouts of the group. In terms of the other ones of the other games, Salzburg have it's not a vintage group that they have, but it's a very practical group. They have Roko Simic, who they signed from Croatian football. I think it was Lokomotiva Zagreb last summer. They signed him for 3 million, and he's very much a Red Bull striker in his appearance and style. Like he's quite rangy. He's very aggressive in his movements. He stretches the pitch, but he can link play as well. He's one to watch. He's had a decent UEFA Youth League season. Relied a bit too much on penalties, but you can see his quality. Who else from Salzburg? There's Dion Camry, another little live wire of a centre midfielder. Another one that's built in the Red Bull model in terms of how he plays, where he plays. So like he starts deeper, but then he pushes forward. He's a very tenacious presser. He's got quick feet around the box. He can link play. He has that eye for a pass, which is crucial to the way that Salzburg play, especially in the transition-based style that they have. They have Salzburg also have a left centre back called Lukas Wallner. He looks like he's the captain. He looks like a high-level talent. Who else? Maybe Aletti, Stephen.
Yeah, Al Jabari, I think at Letty's probably, they're more of a war of attrition at Letty, just like the senior team is. But Al Jabari up front is a kind of just a really looks like a guy that'd be really annoying to play against, kind of attacker that's very mobile, looks to stretch the game in behind, presses pretty strongly. Apart from that, there's Kuras, who's an interesting little technical midfielder, but he doesn't always start. Yeah, and then other than that, probably in the other three teams, Dinamo Kiev, Sporting, and Benfica. I haven't really watched a lot of the Portuguese teams. There's Lucas Diaz for Sporting, who's a Canadian Portuguese left winger who is interesting. And then I think you've watched a fair bit of Samba Diallo for Dinamo Kiev, who's been really, really good.
Yeah.
And they were clapping Barcelona in the group stages and doing really well against Benfica as well. So if you want to expand on him, possibly.
Yeah, Samba Diallo. So they bought him out of Senegalese football last summer, and he's of the same generation as Pape Matar Sarr. You might know him from Metz and now Spurs. He was impressive throughout the group stage. They had another a winger called Voloshin. I can't remember his first name, but he's like another low sock sort of dribbly winger. So between Diallo and Voloshin, those are two to watch for Dinamo now on Thursday. But yeah, I think just to expand on the point of Dinamo, it's good that they have the opportunity to carry on the tournament in spite of what's happening over in Ukraine, because they were one of the better teams throughout the group stage, and they picked up some pretty big scalps. So hopefully they can put on a show on Thursday now and maybe progress.
Yeah, Samba Diallo is someone who I was aware of in this competition, and I mean that was mainly due to the fact that domestically he pretty much he's averaging more than a goal a game. I think it's 12 or 13 in 9 or 10 games, league under 19 league matches this season for Dynamo Kiev, and obviously with his 5 goals in the youth league as well, he's doing very well. There was an incident, I think it was in a domestic game. Not so long ago, Lou, I remember sending you it. That I remember he lost his head at an opponent and just kind of was absolutely having none of it. Started to would you say lash out is maybe the wrong term, or was it just kind of? He does seem to have a bit of a fiery streak in him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's quite small as well, so he packs a punch. Like he's fairly similar to Mane in some ways in how he plays off the left and he can come inside and shoot off his right foot and he can stretch the pitch a bit. But yeah, he has that bit of an edge to him.
Yeah, thinking ahead then, in terms of after this tournament is finished at the end of April, in June and the very beginning of July, there will be the Under-19 European Championships, which it's great to see that these tournaments are coming back, because over the past couple of years we've had lots of cancellations, lots of postponements, lots of youth football being kicked into touch. And they're incredibly valuable competitions because they're not easy to qualify for. So it's a good platform, and it's a good place to showcase some of the best and brightest in Europe for their national sides. So yeah, Under-19 Euros will be I think it's the 18th of June it kicks off. And the likes of Italy, the likes of England, likes of France are all going to be there. But a lot of these players who are playing UEFA Youth League football at the moment and this season, they're probably going to be included in the squads there. So it's a good opportunity to maybe get a head start on some of the players who will be appearing at these youth international tournaments. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Steve.
Yeah, they're just always really fun tournaments. I think the under-19s is probably like the peak fun level of these youth tournaments. I think the under-17s, they're probably just a little bit too unrefined yet in terms of their quality, and everything can just be a little bit too chaotic. And then under-21 level, you've got a lot of them are already kind of senior ready players that are just having a kickabout at admittedly still a very high level, but it's very similar to what you would expect to see in a senior game. Whereas I think this kind of level hits the sweet spot in terms of still bringing, that kind of little bit of chaos and a lot of attacking that you expect to see in youth games, but you can see the progression to that senior level. all kind of happen before your eyes. So yeah, it's looking forward to this tournament. Obviously, the tournament also acts as qualifying to the Under-20 World Cup, which will be happening next year. I believe the Under-20 World Cup is in Indonesia. So I might go to Bali, and I'm pretty sure there's games in Bali. So I might need to plan a little holiday around that one.
Dust the passport off.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, lost to, I think France qualified with one of the last kicks of the game against Bosnia the other day. Italy knocked out both Belgium and Germany. So yeah, it's not easy to qualify, and so you know that the teams that actually make it to the final stage are really, really high quality.
Yeah, just to expand on that, I'm really excited to start watching it, because it's been since 2019 was the last time these tournaments were going on. So that's quite a long time ago now. That's 3 years ago. So yeah, really excited. We'll be covering it in full on Scouty Football. Not sure whether it'll be on the website or the Patreon, but yeah, keep an eye on us. We'll be all over it.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely keep an eye out for the final instalments of the UEFA Youth League write-ups that Steve and Llew have been doing throughout this season. They will be on the Patreon following the semis and the final at the end of this month. But gents, thank you very much for joining me on this. I've had a lot of fun listening to all these new names and listening to you two sort of wax lyrical about your favourite stories of this year's Youth League, because as you say, and as we keep reiterating, it is a fun tournament. It's football in the middle of the day. You know, it's just, yeah, it's another opportunity to see the next generation of young players. So thanks for coming on.
And I will add that there are more names that we haven't mentioned in all of our roundups that are on the Patreon. So go sign up and you can read all of those, and likes of Alex Lowry at Rangers, plenty more. So yeah, go check those out.
Good plug, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening to the Scouted Football Podcast. I've been Joe Donoghue, and this has been UEFA Youth League with Stephen Ganellis and Llew Davies. Stay safe, take care, bye for now.